What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in for another afternoon devotion today. Our last one in our series on 1 Corinthians 13 and love. So we're going to wrap that up today. We're going to move on to 10 Commandments next. Thank you for everybody who checked in with what you guys are thinking about what you want to do with these. I really appreciate hearing from all of you. Most of the votes were for next, but I think after that we'll do the 12 apostles like I mentioned, and then we'll do women of the Bible after that. So we'll kind of do walking through a couple of character study series after this, and that'll take us way in the summer and probably be it for this. But anyway, so thank you guys again just for being here today. I want to know what you're thankful for today. It's been kind of a weird day for me. I'm pretty sure my phone just bit the dust, so that's kind of like frustrating, but I'm thankful that I was able to get some texts out to the guys about some questions for Wednesday night before my phone bit the dust, so I'm thankful for that. So anyway, Alec and Eric, by the way, if you are watching, if you want to check in with what you're thankful for, I don't know, maybe text Luke, or if you can do the chat or send me an email or something. I can't get text right now because my phone died. So anyway, all right. So let's do some quarter team games. Let's do some quarter team games for today. So last time, Friday was National Donut Day. And so the question was, how many donuts does the average American eat in a year? And the answer was 31. So, they know about the number of donuts total that are consumed in America, which is like 10 billion, I think. And they sort of divide that by the total number of Americans, and it came out to 31 as sort of the average per person. So anyway, closest was Tim at 35. Daniel, I'm so sorry you had already said 30 and then switched it to 24. You got to trust your gut, especially when we're talking about donuts, I guess. Anyway, whatever. So Tim gets a quarter for that one. Today's question, we're going to do another on this date. On this date, the very first Porsche was finished. It was constructed by hand. They had not gotten to an automated conveyor belt system yet, but the first Porsche was completed on this day. The question for you is what year? What year was the first Porsche car? Porsche. I don't know. I think in America, a lot of times we just say Porsche. I think technically German, because that's where they're from, German and Austria, this Porsche. So anyway, what year was the first Porsche produced? So there's your question for today. So checking in, I see several watching. I see a couple checking in. Luke's thankful for transportation. Emmy's thankful to be able to go to church. Me too. And Emmy, it was great to see you yesterday. And thank you. And I know there's others, the Tossies and Caleb and Kyle and several others in our church that helped with doing some of the cleaning and sanitizing. Big help, and really appreciate you all pitching in and being a part of that. I love your servants' hearts, and I'm thankful for that. So I'll add that to the list. So, all right, so let's get into our study. So we're going to wrap up. Like I said last time, I wanted this to be kind of a little bit of a summary, but what I want us to see today is Beth checking in. Okay, Beth has her guest. And Blair. Hi, Blair. I guess maybe Blair's hanging out over there. So that's awesome. Miss you. And thank you both for checking in. That's good to hear from you. Anyway, all right. So 1 Corinthians 13, love. Sorry, I got sidetracked for a second there. I want to do kind of a summary. And I want us to see something, just sort of how this chapter, and really just these 4 verses that we've looked at, really kind of helped to answer a lot of the issues that the whole Corinthian church was dealing with. So some of you guys may remember when we studied 1 Corinthians, this is a letter where that church had a lot of struggles, had a lot of issues that Paul needed to address. And one really cool thing was in 2 Corinthians, really he didn't have to bring those things up. It seems like they heard the message, they listened, they fixed it. But yeah, there's a lot of issues to address. And what I want us to see, and I want to just sort of run through them real quick, where we can see how if they will follow what Paul tells them in verses 4 through 7, what we've studied here, it'll fix the problems with the other things that they're doing, because they're going to be acting in love and care for one another. So, I just sort of want to run down really quickly what these issues were, and sort of how what we see in 13 kind of answers those, and maybe what that means for us too. So, they struggled with divisions, just like not getting along and sort of dividing into different factions in the church, which was definitely showing pride which was sort of a common theme in a lot of these. But yeah, if they would remember that love does not envy, love does not boast, love is not arrogant, love does not insist on its own way, then all these factions are not going to be a thing, because they're going to be concerned more about one another than about themselves. There was issues with sexual immorality, and a lot of that issue was in terms of the church was they're like, hey, look at us. We know this is going on, and we still are cool with these people. And Paul said that's not something to be okay with. So again, you've got issues of arrogance. And so Paul tells them love is not arrogant, but also love does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. And so they needed to learn that lesson. And living in love, the way Paul tells them, would help them to fix that. They had issues where they were filing lawsuits against one another instead of working out their differences one with another. If they'd remember that love does not insist on its own way, that love is not irritable or resentful, they could handle that stuff on their own. They had some struggles with how to deal with food that was sacrificed to idols, and sort of everybody having their own opinion, but really more digging in their heels and sticking to their opinion than worrying about the truth. So again, we've got issues with if love does not insist on its own way, then you're going to be able to figure out how to get along, even if we have some disagreements on these things. Idolatry was apparently an issue there. That's one that's really that's breaking the first commandment, which we'll get to on Wednesday. That one's not so much a love for one another. That's loving God properly. So that's a little bit of a different issue. They had issues with the Lord's Supper where they would get together, but the rich people who didn't have to work during the day would get there first and eat all the food. And when the poor people showed up, there was nothing left for them to do that with, which was very inconsiderate. And so if they would remember that love is not rude, they wouldn't be doing things like that. Chapters 12 through 14 is all about spiritual gifts. They had issues again with sort of factions. Well, like, I've got this gift. Well, I've got this gift and I'm better than you and blah, blah, blah. And again, we're coming down to pride. So man, there's so many of these that the struggles they had with that were a big deal. He devoted 3, what we would call chapters to it, a big chunk of the book. But if they would remember things like love is patient, and love does not envy, and love does not boast, love is not rude, love does not insist on its own way. You know, some of it was they were bragging about what gift they had. Some of it was they were trying to show off with whatever gift they had when they gathered for worship. And if they'd remember these things that that Paul was teaching them in what we call chapter 13, they wouldn't have these issues. So it's just kind of interesting to me how if they will follow the rules of what love is, if they will live in a way that shows love, and Paul defines that for them and defines it for us, then they're not going to have to worry about all these other issues because it's going to take care of itself. Which reminds me of a passage, and I want to close with this today. I'm going to cheat and go to another passage of Scripture, not 1 Corinthians 13, but I'm going to go to Romans 13. I'm going to read you verses 9 and 10. So Romans 13, 9 and 10 says this: for the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, which we'll get into those in a couple of weeks as we get into 10 commandments. These are part of the second half, which we could sum up in love one another, which we'll see here. And any other commandment are summed up in this word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. That line right there at the end is the key. Love is the fulfillment of the law. What he's telling us is, look, if you truly love one another, and that means not just this feeling, but acting in love toward one another, and especially the way that he outlines it in chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians, then you're not going to have to worry about all these other commandments because it's going to come naturally because you're already doing what's right for one another. And that's really the key to all of this, is if we will do these things and live a life of love, we're not gonna have to worry about all this stuff. The other thing is, really, if you boil all these issues that the Corinthian church had, you can boil it all down to selfishness. And I think what we've seen and what we've talked about throughout this section is love is not selfish. And so if we will live that life of love toward one another, then a lot of these other issues are going to take care of themselves. So let's strive to do that and trust that God's going to work those things out for us. So anyway, so check in if you haven't yet for your quarter team game answer. The first Porsche was done. Next up on Wednesday, we will start with the 10 commandments and we'll walk our way through there. And I'm looking forward to learning some really good things with you guys on that. So enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you Wednesday afternoon with 10 commandments. Love you guys. Bye.